We're back on another podcast, IssacIndigo podcast. I'm here with Regina Fisher. She's going to be delving into M&A, mergers and acquisitions. Um, and first, we're going to start off. I appreciate you being here with us, and really would like to learn everything that you know with M&A. So we
Thank
could
you.
start off with your journey and how you started. I know that you're Austrian. You said that you got here when you're 26, right?
Kind of like that, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So go ahead and tell your how you started in getting into M&A.
Okay. Hi, Isaac. Thank you so
Hi.
much for having me. Great
Yeah.
pleasure. I always like to share my knowledge. I
Hmm.
don't want to go too much in my personal story because we
Okay.
could spend 3 days just talking
Okay.
about that. Just to give you a quick wrap up. Yes, I was born in Vienna, Austria. Grew up there. Went to college there for business and informatics. Informatics when there was no internet. So that's how
Hmm.
old I am. And IT was something up and coming. That's why I thought it would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Quick story: I had a career in the fintech industry that, over the course of my lifetime, spent about 18 to 20 years. But in between, I did things like I traveled around the world for 3.5 years, and I lived in the jungle in Belize for a year, and I always came
Mm.
back and continued my professional career. So that's as a quick wrap up of who I am personally.
Mm.
What is M&A? Right there, it's pretty much helping business owners sell their business, or businesses or companies acquire businesses, right? I
Mm.
focus specifically on the first one. My clients are always the business owners that are selling their business, whether they want to retire, do something else, or they get to a point where they know that in order to grow, they have to have some cash in injection, right? It's not
Mhm.
necessarily venture capital, it's not startups, not angel funds. It's a little bit of a different approach because we're really looking to sell the majority share of the business, if not 100%, right?
Mhm.
So, what does that entail? Number one, the question is, what do we have here for sale? Like, what is it? Right? Do you sell? Do you have an existing company? Do you have clients? Do you make money? How profitable are you? The second question is, how much is that worth? Right? Is it worth $100,000, a million, 10 million? And then who would want to buy it? And why would they want to buy it? And how much would they want to pay for that? So that all has to fit together. Right? So
Mhm.
when I get approached by a business owner that is thinking about selling their business, my first conversation is always like, tell me about your business. What do you have there, right? Where are you? What's your client base? More important also, what is your role as the owner? Why is that, you think, an important question?
Mhm.
It's an important question because if I sell my business and I, the owner, play a pivotal role in the business's success, but I sell my business and I want to go away, who's going to take over my role? Is the business still going to be successful? Right? So these are the first questions. And now on the business valuation, there's a lot of companies out there that do business valuations. Business valuations is not rocket science. It's not like, oh, there's this one number that the business is worth. They
Mhm.
go in a range, right? We
Yeah.
always talk about the multipliers. Multiplier is the EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax,
Taxes. Yeah.
amortization, depreciation.
Mhm.
EBITDA, and times X is the value of the business, or the revenue times X is the value of the business, or the gross profit times X is the value of the business. But what is that X? And I always like to say, look, it's somewhere between zero point 0.4 and 29. That's a big range, right?
Mhm.
It's for most small businesses, main street businesses, like your plumber in a town or your furniture store. They're usually somewhere in the 2 to 3 range,
Mhm.
especially if our EBITDA is a million or less, and then
Mhm.
it goes up. What
Is
makes that multiplier higher? You have a question, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is there like specific businesses that you particularly go for, or?
So I'm part of a group. We're the Bristol Group. We are a group of business brokers that are spread across the country, and we are what we call industry agnostic. So we sell everything from an excavation company to an audiology doctor, right?
Mhm.
Um, Me specifically, I have started in the last year now to focus my efforts towards fintech companies because, again, like I mentioned earlier, this is where I had my career for 18 years. I worked specifically on credit card projects with international partners for a very long time, negotiating strategic partnerships. And so I market myself specifically towards fintech companies. But I live in a small town in North Carolina, and word gets around, and people find me, and then I sell the occasional. What did I sell recently? I currently have a tool company, so that's an importer of tools, imports the tools from Taiwan, and then sells them to Amazon, Granger, Home Depot, and companies like that. So that's something I sell as well. But fintech, my favorite. Why? Because that's what I have most experiences, and then it's such an exciting industry. There's so much happening out there. If you have other questions, but I think you wanted to know how I got into doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, how did you first start? Like, did you do like a process of elimination of like what is like what would be the highest form of success to like lowest? Or was that?
Okay. So maybe rolling back a little bit, in my career, I started off as a techie, a software quality assurance analyst, a tester. I did that for a number of years. Then I got an opportunity to run a couple of teams. Like I was a manager in a very large international corporation. I had three teams in two different countries in Europe, again, managing the software quality assurance process within a fintech company. And then I made a switch over to a bank, and I've led their credit card department. During those years, so I do have a master's degree in IT and business. During those years, I was always interested in the M&A process, right? Buying companies. Specifically at the time, I thought that my forte would be in the post-merger integration. So when a large company buys, or two companies merge, or a large company buys a smaller one, and how do you then make that successful, that integration, right? 70%, statistically, 70% of mergers and acquisitions are not successful after the first year. So they go in with great intentions, and then things happen, and it's just not turning out the way they wanted it to be, right? So I thought that's going to be my direction. I've taken some certificates, some classes, but then in my role at that bank, I took over this department that I ran, and it was not successful. We were not making money. And over the course of 3 or 4 years, I grew it because I renegotiated some of the contracts that we had in place and got some new contracts in place with partners. So we were the bank behind fintech products,
Yeah.
because for fintech product, you obviously need a license, and we had the licenses, the banking licenses. So I grew the department so big that the rest of the bank said, so my board of the bank, it was a privately owned private bank in Vienna, Austria, very prestigious, very cool, great location. But they said, hey, look, Regina, you grew so fast. From a risk perspective, there's now too much risk in your department, because we were turning around billions of dollars in that small department of 3.5 people. And they said, you have to sell off your projects. So I pretty much had to sell off my job. I had to sell off our ATM network to a consumer bank in Austria. I had to sell off another project to a partner in Australia. So I pretty much sold off the pieces that comprised the profit of my department to other banks across Europe and Asia. And I pretty much sold off my job. But that was my first real involvement with M&A, because at this point I was on the selling side. I sold off these pieces. It was not entire businesses, it was portions, right? And then I did other stuff. I still worked in the same kind of industry, but at that time I worked as a consultant for a company based in Spain. Again, doing a lot of strategic partnership negotiations. So negotiating with MasterCard, negotiating with JP Morgan, with US Bank, a lot of contract negotiation. And then for personal reasons, I lived in North Carolina. I had to figure out how I can make money living in North Carolina, not traveling through London and Spain and Brazil every month, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I did the 5 years prior. And I came across the Bristol Group, right? They are M&A brokers, business brokers, and I talked to them, and it was a mutual vetting. They said, look, we're looking for a new affiliates. It's not really a franchise, but we are each other's cheerleader and mentor, and we control a pot together where we have certain assets. And yeah, and it turned out to be 80% of what I've done in the past,
Hmm.
plus an extra 20% where they were going to help me to overcome that first bump. Again, doing business valuations. I had never done that before to that extent. and also the what I call the personal marketing. So marketing myself. I was always embedded in a corporation and then
Yeah.
talked to people that wanted to do business with that corporation or wanted to
Mhm.
access the assets of that corporation. But now it's just me. Like I'm the asset. I'm the knowledge carrier. I have the expertise. Hire
Sa-
me. So I call it the me marketing, right? It's
Same.
very hard when you start.
Yeah, same. That's the reason for the podcast too. It's really just to build my own just my own marketing for myself, like as a person. It's like virtual. I call it like virtual real estate that I have control over. No matter like where I go, I'm able to build something on my own, even if
Yeah,
I'm with the company and stuff. You know.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts about like? I see YouTube entrepreneurs that are M&A, and they talk about like roll up models and stuff like that, like, oh, you could purchase companies with doing seller finance and all this stuff. Like, I've talked with some like really big business owners, and they were saying that there's so many pieces to mergers and acquisitions that it is very hard, and there's so many things that you don't know what you don't know that they were telling me. So like, what are your thoughts on people that say that it's like extremely easy and that you can go buy a business in 2 days type of thing?
So there's a couple of things, right?
Yeah,
If something seems too easy to too good to be true or too easy to be true, it probably is, right?
yeah.
So you can't make millions of dollars with something very simple where you have no idea of what you're doing and then suddenly you're a millionaire. It's not
My
happening. It's
my
not going
whole
to
sorry. My whole thing is that I feel like they're trying to get you into it so that way you learn how to do it, and then you get stuck so that way you have to call them and be like, "Hey, I have this deal. Can you help me with this process?" And then they're able to like swoop in on your deal.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, but there's a lot of companies out there, right? As you see these road signs saying, "We buy your house for cash."
yeah.
There's organizations that put out trainings for people to teach them how to do that, and then they teach you can buy the house without any money and then sell it before it closes, and then you just switch it around. This is crazy. No, it's not. That's not how things work, right?
Yeah.
So these roll-up models. So I'll give you an example. When I have a client, a business for sale, I put it out there and then I get inquiries from buyers. And I get a lot of inquiries from buyers. And then I talk to them. And once in a while, and it's gotten better again, but it was a couple years ago and it must be one of those schools that you mentioned. I had a lot of these people calling and saying, I'm interested in purchasing this business. And then I don't know where the thumbs up came. I'm interested in purchasing this business. And I say, sure. And then I get some background information. And it seems to be somebody like that. And then very quickly they want to send over an offer and get an accepted offer.
Mhm.
But that's not how things work, right?
Yeah.
When you buy a business, there's a lot of intricate pieces that have to be falling into place. And I really have to understand who that buyer is. And that buyer really has to be the right person for my client's business. And we really have to see some success. And you mentioned seller financing. For a seller to give seller financing, they have to have 100% huge confidence level that that buyer is going to be successful, right? That's not just somebody, like if I have a furniture business, I'm not going to sell it to somebody who's never had a furniture business under his belt and bought furniture from all over the world and knows how to do that kind of stuff, right? If I'm seller financing this part, right?
Mhm.
So these roll-ups, there was somebody telling these people, hey, you can get letters of intent, which is an accepted offer, is a non-binding. A letter of intent is a non-binding agreement, but sets the intention of the parties to close the deal under the agreed terms.
Mhm.
So apparently somebody taught these people, hey, get as many letters of intents for businesses in the same industry, and then you can package it together, and then you sell it for a bunch of money, and then you make whatever the difference is, right? When somebody like this gets to me, I don't share with them any information because I smell it. I can smell if you're a real buyer or not, right? It
Oh, okay.
doesn't work that way. A roll up, yes, exists, but how does a roll up work? Somebody that knows how to run businesses. Like recently, I had a company, they bought an HVAC company from me. So it's usually a team already in place. They know how to operate businesses and they have money. and they're actually buying a business. It's not seller financing. It's not just a letter of intent. They're actually purchasing the business. But let's say they buy a business for 1.5 million here, and they buy another one for 1 million there, and they buy another one for 3 million there. So now the investment is $5.5 million, but now they have three businesses. They have a larger geographical footprint than each one of them. Let's say they're all within a 50-mile radius, right? They have a larger footprint. They pretty much control the market. And now instead of making $400,000 EBITDA and $200,000 and $300,000, they're now making almost $1 million in EBITDA, right? So now instead of having an investment of 5.5, $1 million, that's maybe the wrong multiples, but it's again, just as an example, they invested let's say they invested $5 million, they now have $1.5 million in EBITDA, they can sell it easily for 6 to 7 million. Well, now they make some money. But it really you have to know what you're doing. It doesn't just happen like that, right? Because again, once you own all these things, you have to find the right buyer to buy.
Oh,
But,
okay.
and again, sorry if anybody's watching this and I messed around with the numbers. It's all in my head. So the point being, the larger the bottom line net profit of a business is, and the more secure the future revenues of the business, the higher the multiple you sell it for. So one small business that makes $500,000 in EBITDA, probably you get $1.5 million, right? But three businesses that cover geographic area have a lot of synergies. So each one might have an office manager that answers the phone. Bam, now you just need one central location with maybe 1.5 people to answer the phone. And you've saved 1.5 people personnel. So there's a lot of benefits in these roll-ups. But somebody teaching you, you don't need to have any money and you just call and say, I want to buy this. Not
Yeah.
working.
How would you say someone would be able to start? Like someone that's like fresh, that is interested in the idea of M&A, like say for buying like a marketing and sales company, um, with very little money. What would you say is like the minimum that you would need, or
Yeah.
the minimum requirements at least?
Yeah. So there are SBA loans. SBA, Small Business Administration, 7A loans are to help business buyers to buy the business. You can come with as little as 10% down, right? Normally they want 20% equity injection. So then the bank says 10% from the buyer, 10% from the seller financing. Most sellers are open to finance 10%. They wouldn't be open to finance 80 or 90%, but 10%, right? That's kind of in the frame. But then again, so that the SBA is an organization that secures the loan. The loan actually still comes from a bank. So you need to talk to a bank. And there's different kinds of banks. There are those that are what's called on the SBA preferred lender program. Preferred lender program means they can actually run through the entire SBA loan process by themselves. And the non preferred lender program banks, they have to go with everything to the SBA and come back, so the process is longer, right?
Mhm.
Hold on one second, I gotta open this door.
It's okay.
Silly dog. Silly dogs want to get in and out every time. Okay, so you go to the SBA, you go to your lender. Yeah, your lender is an SBA lender. They're gonna run with you through that whole process, how to get an SBA loan. The business profitability, the business numbers, again, how secure it is that that business is still gonna be successful after the buyer buys it, falls into play. But then also the buyer, like what's your credit rating? What's your experience? You're not going to be able to buy something where you have no clue what you're doing. Very
wouldn't
rarely. The
wouldn't
lender's not going
someone
to let you do that.
have them on their board, like say someone that's very experienced in marketing, they would partner with them on their board to be able to buy it together.
Okay, yeah, you can have partners that purchase something with you, right? So again, if you have already somebody that has the money, that's a different story. But then again, I've come from strategic partnerships. You have, like, it's a some kind of partner, not a family member, but somebody you know,
Yeah.
and say, look, I want to invest in this company, and you say, yes, I want to buy this company, I'm going to run it. You better make sure that you make it very clear what each other's expectations are from this deal. Don't just people get so excited about, oh, they're gonna give me money and I'm gonna buy this, right? But
Yeah.
you need to be really clear as like how much money and what's your expectation? What's your expectation from me? And then there's everything is always there is some kind of risk, right? Um, Buying a business is not like buying real estate. It's not like the house is standing there and you get a key in the door and maybe the deck has a hole and you got to replace the board. I mean, a business needs to be operated properly to be successful, right? So if your partner expects you're gonna grow 10% in sales every year, but you have no clue how to do this, so be very, if you have a partner, be very clear of what the expectations are, what your expectations are from them, right?
Mhm.
If you go to the SBA, the bank's gonna run with you through the process and again explain to you what they expect from you, and they're gonna vet whether this is a good idea. 10% down is the minimum. I don't think it's a good idea to try to buy $1 million business if I have $100,000 because you don't want to, if you only have $100,000, you don't want to
Mm.
squish yourself, right? You don't want to get in a situation where you get cash flow strapped and then panic. Nobody functions well under panic.
Yeah.
Maybe some people do under stress, but not under panic, right?
Mhm. Okay. And then another thing too is like, say you built a board. Is there a way that your board can basically, have a meeting together where they don't want you a part of their business anymore? Like they basically take the business. Say you guys built it together, and
You
is
mean
there
a
like a
hostile
buy?
takeover?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's we see that in movies, right? This usually happens in very large organizations. Um, yes, I mean if it's all about who owns the shares of the business, right? So
Mhm.
if you're normally when we talk about a small business, a lot of these businesses in our towns here are the owners that run the business own 100%, or he and the wife own 50-50 each or something like this, or you have a partner, right?
Mhm.
So you're now talking about organizations that sell shares. So when you get investors, you usually give up equity shares in
Mhm.
return to cash to your investors. If you dilute yourself too much, suddenly you find yourself with less than 50% or 20% or 10%, right? And then the other shareholders can make decisions and can make the decision to oust you as the CEO or the person that runs the business.
Okay. And what do you think, some common challenges are like, you know, that people would face, um, starting doing mergers and acquisitions?
Okay, so what do you mean when starting mergers and acquisitions? Are you talking
Or
about somebody like me helping people, or are you talking about somebody looking to buy or sell a business?
looking to buy or sell? Sorry if I
That's
messed up
okay.
the
That's okay.
names.
That's why I'm.
What?
See, it's all about really understanding the question. If you want to buy or sell a business, hire somebody like me.
Okay.
I do it all the time, right? A lot of
Okay.
business owners, a lot of business owners will do this once in their lifetime, right?
Mm.
They're serial entrepreneurs or multiple entrepreneurs that own many businesses or they've done it in the past. They're out there too, right? But for the majority of humans, you will buy a business once in your lifetime or twice, right? I
Mhm.
do it several times a year. That's all I do. All I do is talk to buyers, talk to sellers, understand what the buyers are looking for, understand what the banks are asking for, understand how the banks value business. So you're very well behooved to hire somebody like me. Now, I get a lot of inquiries. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, my clients is always the seller, right?
Mm.
So I get a lot of inquiries from buyers saying, "Hey, can you help me buy a business?" And I usually say no, right? Because if you want to buy something, I might find something, but it might not be the right fit for you. Or if you
Mm.
say, "I want to buy an online e-commerce company for, I want to say ping pong balls," I might find an online e-commerce company for ping pong balls, but it might be too big for you or too small for you, or it might not have the right size ping pong ball and the right color ping pong balls. So
And that's a
I
lot of work to go look for that for you, like, you know.
exactly. The point I'm trying to make is if you want to buy something, it's like a needle in a haystack search, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I like to have a seller. I can understand the business, I understand the value, I don't know why this is interesting for buyers, and then I can go and find the right buyer for them. So
Mm.
now, if you want to buy a business, my advice is always first step, go to your bank or go to several banks, find out if they're PLP lenders or preferred lender program for the SBA so they can do the whole SBA loan themselves.
Mhm.
That's number one. And then if they say yes, go with them through a pre-qualification process. Hey, look, this is who I am. This is how much money I am. I'd like to buy something. Would you help me finance that? How much could I spend? Should I look for businesses in the $300,000 range? Can I look up to a million? Can I look up to 5 billion? What can we do, right? What are your expectations? And you're gonna say, well, you can buy anything. Or you say, like, look, you've been working in the restaurant industry all your life. If you want to buy a restaurant, we would support you. Or you're a plumber, we would support you as a plumber. Or maybe contractors, right? A lot of people have a contractor license. They're not going to be a lot. The SBA is not going to say, "Oh, you've been a contractor all your life. You got to be really good selling insurance."
Yeah.
It's kind of like difficult, right? So talk to your bank first, get a good understanding what that process looks like, how much money you need to be able to put on the table. Once you have that information, then you go out and you search. There's a website called BizBuySell, BizBuySell.com. You'll find it easily if you just say buy business. It's the top one. It is the website. Pretty much everybody puts their businesses out there, unless you're going into a $5 to $10 million range, but I don't think that's what you're looking for. So all the small, medium-sized businesses, they're all going to be on BizBuySell, right? And then you reach out, and then sometimes the brokers are great, and sometimes they're not so great, and you get some information, and you really try to understand what you're getting yourself into there. And then talk
Okay.
to a CPA, talk to an attorney, talk to your friends, have people review that information. But that's it always starts with understanding what you can purchase, what you can buy yourself.
Mhm. How can someone go and look for certain businesses, like how you were saying that you might find certain businesses, but it might not be in someone's range or expertise or whatever. Um, how can someone go and find? Can you just call up businesses? Like I know that you said that you shouldn't do that, but could you like say if I'm looking for a marketing and sales company, couldn't I call up to see if they would be interested in selling or
Oh, 100%.
that's
Oh, and
okay.
people do it all the time. Phone calls,
Okay.
emails, letters. People that own businesses get these phone calls, emails all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. But then again, you say, "Oh, I like your business. I want to buy it." You have no clue what their financials are. The guy might
Yeah.
be just burning through money. It might look nice on the outside, but he might be burning through money. Yeah. And then he says, "Yeah, I'll sell it to you for a million." And you go like, "Oh, great. That's in my range." Do you think this is a good idea? No, you
Mhm.
still have to go through what's called due diligence. Due
Due
diligence
diligence.
is
Yeah.
the right of the buyer to review the books and records of the business, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think it's absolutely okay. Is it going to be successful? Can be sometimes, right? But most
Right.
times people don't want to sell their business. It's their baby.
Yeah. If it's already
They
going
run it. If they
going
want to
good.
sell
Yeah.
it, they're gonna proactively start looking.
Yeah. Do you think that people that are selling the business most likely are kind of like there's something wrong with the business?
No,
No.
no.
I don't think so. Okay.
I mean,
Um,
of course, there are businesses. Sometimes I get these calls where people go like, "Oh, I'm exhausted. I'm not making any money, and it was a
mm,
bad idea." And I, I don't even deal with them, right?
mm,
But a lot of business owners, a lot of times, especially now, we see a lot of what's called the boomer generation. I don't know if you're
yeah.
familiar with that term. They are now getting to an age where they're retirement in the late 60s, right? So we see a lot of small businesses being sold in that range.
Yeah.
And then again, that's retirement. A lot of times, there's some people just I've been doing this now for 16 years, 20 years. I don't want to do it no more. I recently sold a very successful bar restaurant at the beach. It was a young couple. They weren't even married when they got it. She was working there. The owner was looking to retire. They got a great opportunity, got a loan and bought it. And then they ran it and built it up to a really, really successful place with live music 4 days a week in the summer and really great staff. And now they sold it with great money because they said, look, we got a kid. We want more kids. We have done this for 10 years. It's a non-stop thing. We want to get
Mm,
out. And they made some good money. So, yeah, and
wow.
very successful business.
What is some like some examples of a due diligence process that someone should be um using in order to like sift through a business? So like say looking through P&L sheets,
Yes.
tax,
Yes.
I don't know, like what other things? Like how is there a way that you can like find ways that they're hiding? Like would you hire like a private investigator or something to like really
I don't know. I don't know. You can do some research on criminal record or something. But what you do is you get to profit and loss statements of the business. you
Hmm.
get the tax returns for at least the last 3 years. What I always like to look at, for instance, right now we have end of quarter 1 24. I'd look at how does quarter 1 this year compare to quarter 1 last year. So is the business growing? Is it going down? Right? And then look at the last 3 years. If a business owner does not give you the tax returns and the profit and loss statements, you know something's fishy, right? I would just walk away. Don't even bother any longer. And then what you're looking for is to really to understand, like, where does the money come from? Where does it go? You also want to look at a client list. They might not want to give you the client names because that's very confidential. But then say, give me at least, I don't know, a list with the client names abbreviated to the first 3 letters or something. But I want to know, is there any client concentration? Meaning, does a large percentage of revenue come from 1, 2, or 3 clients, right? Why is that a problem? If, let's say, my client is John Construction, and John Construction makes 80% of my revenue, and John Construction is a personal friend of the seller. Seller sells it. John Construction might say, well, I'm like now use another plumber or electrician or whatever I am, right? And suddenly I lose 80% of my revenue, right? So that's why you look for customer concentration. The next thing you want to look at is, again, what is the owner's role? And you don't just ask him what it is, you ask again and you ask again, and you really want to understand what his day looks like for several reasons, because you want to understand, are you going to be able to fulfill that role? And also, do you want to understand that if that guy's gone, are the clients still going to come? Are the
Yeah.
employees going to leave? The next thing is, who are these employees? Is it his mom, his sister, his cousin, his uncle, and they're all going to go with him, or are they all going to stay, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then customer concentration. Yeah, for instance, is there a business location? Do they own the real estate? Is there a lease in place? Can you take over the lease? If so, is there any kind of expectation on the lease is going to go up? Are you going to get the same terms, right? What's the landlord going to do? Is he going to kick you out?
Hmm.
So all these questions, like, you really want to make sure, what am I getting myself into? And once I take that over, is it still going to be running and up and successful, and kind of make at least that same kind of money that the guy's making?
What would you say is like the worst businesses to buy?
The ones where all these questions that throw out are giving you a red flag.
Oh, okay.
Other than
So
that,
pretty much,
there's successful pizza places, and there's successful, I don't know, tile sales places, and there's
yeah.
successful
So,
IT,
so
and there's people that are super successful in e-commerce, and there's people that just are ridiculous what they're doing. So there's no
okay,
industry that's bad, right? It's all about all these questions that just put out. They're all going to come back very positive answers.
okay, okay. And then how would someone be able to be like informed? Like, is there any like laws or like regulations when it comes to like buying businesses? Like, um,
Oh, there's tax law, of course, right? There's
mm,
certain tax implications for the seller when he sells his business. There's certain tax implication when you purchase a business. Like, for instance, you purchase the assets of a business and they have a lot of tangible assets. That gives you, as a buyer, the right to depreciate it from the purchase price. So let's say you buy a restaurant, there's a bunch of refrigeration and stoves and hoods and all kinds worth $150,000, right?
mhm,
So the seller might have already depreciated that on his tax returns down to $20,000, but now you agreed it's worth 150, so you purchase it for 150, and you as a buyer can start depreciating again from 150, right?
mhm.
Of course, you have to have a corporation, right? There's legal laws, legal implications when you purchase a business. You definitely want to hire an attorney to
Mhm.
write up the purchase agreement to make sure you're protected. So if anything that the seller did prior to you closing the sale, the purchase,
Yeah.
and that now comes to hit you afterwards, that you can come after them, right?
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I was just really curious about all that. It's something that I always, you know, I'm always curious about because my uncle he actually purchases a lot of laundry mats in
Ah,
yeah, in Southern California area. So,
those are very
um,
popular. They're very
mhm,
popular because you don't need any employees. You just need
mhm.
to have somebody go in, make sure everything is fixed, working. It's all cash. You know, cash. Business owners sometimes tend to hide cash.
Yeah,
That is, anybody does what they do, but when you want to sell a business, you have to show the money on paper.
Mm.
Only the money that shows on your tax return is actually a part of the value of your business.
So you kind
Sometimes,
of don't know how much cash or how much EBITDA that the business is making if it's fully cash.
well, again, they can tell you anything, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes restaurants have cash, right? Sometimes little
Hmm.
bagel places, they might have 20% of their revenue in cash. And then the
Hmm.
owner decides, well, I'm only going to put half of that on the tax return and the other half just in my pocket.
Hmm.
So
So
that's, I'm not the IRS, but again, for purchase of business, you as a buyer, you want to look at the tax returns. You're not going to buy a business based on somebody saying, yeah, but I'm making another extra $100,000 in cash every year and that goes into my pocket. Are you going to believe that?
mm,
How? Yeah, show
mhm.
me. Oh, there's my, there's my vault full of cash now. So be
um
careful.
okay. And what is like some economic um you know things to look out for, like say during downtimes? um is that a good time to buy, or would you say that you shouldn't buy during like downtimes? um
So we just had the worst nightmare of downtime a few years ago, right?
yeah.
COVID. You might probably be aware that during COVID we had losers and winners.
Hmm.
There were people that just didn't make it and they were barely scraping by, or some
Yeah.
that had to close, and others they were just cracking it. I have talked to somebody at a small furniture store. She was going through the roof with her numbers because now what's happening? People at home, what are you going to do? Redecorate the house, buy this garden furniture because they're not going anywhere. They're
Hmm.
sitting around their own house all the time, right?
Yeah.
So there were winners and losers. Is it a good time to buy that furniture business at the time? Yes, but are you going to have a confidence that it's going to stay the same? No, right? So that's why a lot of people waited up. So 2021 was a little bit slower. Now we had all this talk about economic downturn last year with very high interest rates. Interest rates, of course, when you purchase a business, you get a loan, plays into your cost. Um, but is it a good time? It's always a good time to buy a business. Why? Because I'm a huge believer if you want to get ahead in life financially, to own a business is the way to go. As long as you work for other people, all you're going to get is a paycheck. If you own a business, you can work more, you can make good moves, you can be more creative, you can be innovative, and you can double and triple and really, really make it. So I'm a huge fan of self-employment, ownership of businesses, um, and but do it right.
Hmm.
Don't go in it with the pink sunglasses and think it's gonna go. And also, it's hard work. Owning a
Yeah.
business, running a business is hard work. People sometimes think I'm just gonna open it up and people are gonna walk in and I'm just gonna give them the keys and they're gonna go into the sauna or whatever, the solarium. It's not. You're gonna be marketing. You're gonna be customer. Service, then people complain, you got to deal with the complaints, you got to pay your bills, you got to deal with your payroll, you got to deal with your employees, right? It is a lot of work, but it is in the end very, very rewarding financially and personally. You accomplish something, it can make you feel really good.
To to purchase a business as well, like what would you say is like the time length? Would it take someone, obviously we talked about in the beginning that you're not going to purchase a business in 2 days, um, but would you say like the time frame would be about a year or 6 months or so, or?
Um, so from a seller perspective, I always prepare my clients. It takes about 9 months, right?
Mm,
Somebody
okay.
finds it, they look at it, think about it, they come back. Even that last stretch, what I call due diligence, right? From making an offer, accepting an offer to actual closing, finalizing everything with the bank, finalizing all the contractual paperwork, that takes between 2 and 3 months, right? So 9 months. For you as a buyer, it depends. As soon as you find something that you really like and they give you all the information, then it's up to you. And then you can go like, you can speed it up. You still need to go run through the process with the bank, but a lot of things are have to come from you as the buyer. So they want a forecast, they want a personal statement and things like this. If you get that done swiftly, so that takes like from the moment you find something you really like until you negotiate and get the deal agreed until closing, I would say 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
But until you find something that you like, it can be a very long time. Because again, it's not like there's hundreds and thousands of businesses for sale all the time. It's not like houses, right?
Yeah.
If you look on Bispa in your neighborhood, there's not much, right? And
Mhm.
then it has to be the right industry, something you really. Sometimes I get these calls from buyers that just say, "I want to buy something." I'm already not interested in talking to them because you're not buying something. You got to
Mhm.
get passionate about this, right?
Yeah.
If you're not passionate about boat slips, why would you want to be selling boat slips, right?
Mhm.
If you're not passionate about painting houses, why would you want a painter thing, right? A painter business. So you got to be a little bit more. First, again, my advice: go to the bank, figure out how much money you can spend, and spend some time thinking about. It's because when I do this, right,
Yeah. Every time you do that.
they pop up automatically.
Yeah.
And the second thing is figure out what would you be interested in doing. Can you see yourself? And you might not have to do the actual work. You might have employees doing it. But you got to
Yeah.
talk about this all the time. You got to go to cocktail parties and tell people that's my business. That's what I spend my money on, my time on. Are you going to be excited about that? Is it going to be more like, well, about this pool cleaning route, but I really don't like pools? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, why would
Yeah.
you want to buy that?
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. There was also another question I had too. Um, so you said it takes probably about 9 months.
For
Um,
seller, for buy again. Once you find something, 3 to 4 months.
okay. And then also, you were saying to not specifically look for businesses from like 1 to 5 million, because I've seen those. A lot of those influencers are saying like, "Oh, only focus on businesses that are 1 to 5 million in EBITDA or something like that to purchase." I don't know why they said that, but you were saying that probably go for something a lot smaller, just starting out
Depends.
for the risk.
No, it depends, right? If you can get 5 million from the bank, oh, sure, buy something that has a million in EBITDA, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it all depends what price. It's like, are you going to look at the houses, the beach houses in Santa Monica for 17 million? Or are you going to look at the apartment in downtown LA for 700,000? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
what can you afford? That's why I always say the first question is like to see what can you afford?
Hmm.
And again, these courses we talked about earlier that teaches people how to do a roll up, they try to teach people that you can buy businesses without putting up any money.
Hmm.
And then they say, well, if you find 5 businesses with a million EBITDA, then you can sell it for more something. It's not going to work. This is not going to work. Just forget that. It's just playing on people's naivete and trying
Yeah.
to make you purchase this package that they're selling and teaching you. Just stay
Hmm.
away from it. Huh?
Okay.
Work hard. You gotta work hard to make money, right? But
Hmm.
again, if you work hard in a job where you get an hourly rate, you're gonna always get that hourly rate. If you work
Yeah.
hard in a job in a business that you own, you control the shots and you can really get it to a point where you can be successful. But nothing comes without hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you told me a lot of stuff. Is there also any other like any other key pieces that you would like to share?
Let me think for a moment. No, I think we've touched pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
I think you gotta be again. If the message is be brave, look, see what you can do, but do it smart. Again, first step, understand how much money you can spend. Second step, figure out what you're passionate about. Third step, yes, reach out to business owners, and even if they don't want to sell their business, maybe you can learn something from them about the industry, right?
Hmm.
But keep an eye out, look on all the websites, follow up, right? And then I would always say have your ducks in a row. The reason why I say this is because if an interesting business comes on the market that has a reasonable asking price that's very attractive, there's going to be a lot of people like you out there that are going to go after it. So you have your ducks in a row. Said, I'm ready to make a move. This is what I want. I have the money. I know what I want. Now send me all the information. We can take it from there.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Regina.
Yeah, it was very nice talking to you. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, me too. And I thank you for coming on. I don't know what time it is over there in you
It's
said
three
North
hours. I'm,
Carolina?
I'm on the East Coast. 3 hours
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Yeah,
Three
I
hours.
was curious about that because we said 8:30 and I was like, oh shoot. I didn't know if what her time zone was.
Don't worry about it.
I was assuming that you're in California because you didn't tell me your time zone. So,
It's okay. This is better. This is better. All right.
okay. All right. Appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having
We're
me.
going to close out. What we're going to do is there any way that people can reach you? I know that we met on LinkedIn.
Our website is bristolgrouponline.com. Bristol, Bristol group, group, online.com. Bristolgrouponline.com. You'll find me
Mm.
there.
And do you have like Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that, or
Yeah, not for business. Best way is
okay?
the website. On the website, you can there's all kinds of things you can fill out to get in touch with us. You can put in your search criteria. If you want to
Mhm.
buy a business, there's if you go to buy a business and scroll to the very bottom, you can fill out a form. You're saying this is kind of the geographical, the industries I'm looking for, and then you get notified anytime we have a new business. That's probably very interesting for you guys.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right then. I appreciate it. You have a good day. Okay.
you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.